Hi Tara, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, I'm well. How are you?
Really good, and thank you so much for joining me this morning.
That's my pleasure.
It's really nice to have you here, and thank you for being our second person in this series of conversations that matter. And I love doing these conversations. Well, I love having these kind of conversations with girlfriends anyway, because I just love getting to the heart of the matter and talking about what's real in life and our common struggles. But so it's a pleasure for me to be able to record it, to share it with other people, and also for you in future to reflect back on where you were at this stage of your life as well. And I'm really excited to interview you, and you were the first person that popped into my mind after I did the one with Amanda, because I know that you've been on such a deep journey yourself. And you and I met, we haven't known each other that long, but you and I met in South Korea, where we were both based, and we floated in common circles, but then you and I worked together. You were one of the first people to do my professional freedom formula to find your path and purpose.
Also my very first coach. So you've helped me.
Yes. Oh, that's exciting. So yeah, that's nice to know that. And so you and I got to know each other really quite intimately during that whole process, because that was a process of you going into deep self-reflection about your journey so far and where you want to go in future. And so that required sort of a deep soul-searching process of helping you understand who you are and how your journey has led you to where you are now, to position you for how you want to go forward. And so would you, because I know that you have a very inspirational story to tell. So do you mind, are you happy to give us a quick overview of what happened to you in your childhood and how that's led you to where you are now?
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's inspirational.
Oh, I found it inspirational.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was born in Melbourne, but grew up in Darwin, and I had very severe eczema and asthma. And 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it was never heard of. And obviously I had scabs all over my body. I had red, raw skin. It was always swollen. It was always weeping. It was always a part of me that was open and leaking out of the wounds. And as society dictates, that's obviously not a pretty picture to have that happen. And so growing up, I obviously copped a lot of slack from people and people's prejudice and misjudgment of the condition because it wasn't well known. Yeah. Now eczema and asthma has come such a long way and is completely accepted. But when I was growing up with it, it wasn't, and it was seen as a disease that was contagious. And of course, everybody, including parents, are very protective, and they don't want their children to be exposed to such a disease. So I learned three things really growing up, is that parents and people in general do absolutely everything to protect themselves. Natural. Two, that prejudice is learnt, it's not genetic. And three, that the best way...
What did you say is learned, Tara?
Prejudice.
Prejudice is learned, right.
Yeah. I can give you an example of that. I was on a school camp, and I was about to set up my sleeping bag, but one of the parents said, "You can't sleep in my child's tent." So I had nowhere left to sleep. I had to actually sleep in a teacher's tent. So even though my school was great, they got doctors in to try and explain that it's not contagious, it's not dangerous, it's not hurtful, but my skin really was that hideous in its appearance that that would be very hard to digest when you'd never heard of it before. And it's not like somebody next to me had it either. It was so uncommon that I didn't meet another person until I was about 10. So, And that's when I was admitted to hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So when my things started to change is when I was actually able to get help. I was a guinea pig. So every treatment that you now have was because I was the trial patient for it.
Wow.
I did every drug known that is currently used for asthma and for eczema, especially for the eczema. They actually did a trial on me, which they won't use now. They killed my immune system. And the thought behind that was that it was to reboot your organs, as your skin is a major organ of your body. And it's the same treatment that when you have a transplant, you take the same medications. So I got everything under the sun you can possibly imagine. I had urinary tract, I had bladder infections, I had herpes, I got conjunctivitis, I had ear infections. I was in isolation for almost 4 weeks in a hospital where no one really could come in with me. Just why I was so contagious with everything that I did get. It did work for me. My skin did reboot. I have now got a different type of autoimmune disease.
Wow.
That's from rebooting that. Well, they can't place it to that, but it could be a contributor.
But they won't use that approach anymore on people, even though it did work for you. It's too traumatic and too...
It's not, well, it was traumatic, but the repercussions aren't necessarily always as great as mine. So when you kill your immune system and then you try and reboot it, it might come back with more cancer cells. It might not channel your attack modes to try and keep those down. There's many different ways that your body can be rebooted.
So it's too risky, too unpredictable.
It's too unpredictable to continue.
And you were fortunate that it worked for you.
Very fortunate. So as my doctor said, I had no childhood and I had no early teens, but hopefully I will get to experience some of the later teens, experiences that you're meant to have.
Yeah, the joyful part of being a child. Yeah.
Yes. So that happened when I started to notice the difference in my skin. I was 15 when that happened. When I returned to school when I was 16, everybody thought I was a new student. That's the dramatic difference that it had on my appearance.
And how did that make you feel? You're the same person who all these kids knew, and you're coming back, and they're obviously at some point they realised it was you.
Only once I explained to them who I was.
And how did they react then?
I actually think it was harder for them than it was for me to understand what they had given and put out there towards a person, and then actually try and start up a different conversation with the same person just because they look different.
And treat you completely differently.
Yes.
And just to backtrack, you said before there were 3 things you learned. One was self-protection, that's humans' number one priority. And then number 2, you learned that prejudice is learned. And there was a third one. I don't think we covered that one.
Not yet. Compassion. I believe if we all had compassion and we all stopped to control our fears and our prejudices, and we just went forward with a little bit of compassion, open enough to learn the knowledge that can change your view. That's another thing. We never really question how we come to formulate a view. We just go with the fact that that's just there.
Yeah, without understanding how that view makes that person feel who's being judged that way.
Yeah, but it's not always serving you, your current views. It's not always your best way forward either. So.
And was there someone in your environment who held that place of compassion for you? Did you have people that were supportive in that way?
I did. My parents have always been my most supportive and role models. They have always been there. So even though I've got great friends now. I've had one friend that befriended me in high school that is still my best friend today.
Oh.
And I've been blessed later in life to have more friendships than I did when I was younger. My childhood upbringing didn't really allow for friendships when you're in and out of hospital, or my parents have been called to my bedside to say goodbye to me 5 times. So you're too ill to really form your friendships.
5 times. I mean, that's something that's traumatic enough to happen once and to get over it, but you had it 5 times.
Yes. I can't imagine now that I am a mum of 2 boys, I can't imagine what my mum felt. I actually saw it differently. To me, it was okay. I was okay. It was, if I did pass, it was okay. Like, it wasn't to me as scary as others would see it. So,
and do you have an understanding of why that is? Is it because you're in so much pain and suffering anyway that it would be
at
okay?
times it was that. It was easier to, like, I had a suicidal when I was about 15 for that same reason, 14, just before the experimental trial. And it was for that, because it would have just been easier. It would have been easier to not feel anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So not to be there, to be picked on, to be seen, to have to deal with it any longer.
Yeah. And so your parents were called in 5 times to say goodbye to you because the doctors felt that there were 5 specific situations where you were actually so ill that you would die?
Yes, especially with my asthma. So one time I actually did die.
Wow.
So it wasn't the doctor's fault. I was very sick with my eczema and I was admitted to a burns unit. So I had the equivalence of 80% burns to my body. I was on a special bed that was pressurized so that I couldn't be touched because the skin would just fall off. In that, I wasn't eating, obviously. I was too ill. So my body weight was deteriorating and my medication to knock me out to be able to perform the bandages, because you had to have a layer of cream. Then you had like chucks, just cloth that's wet, and you have that on top. And then they used to do Glad wrap. And then on top of that, they used to put your bandages, and that was from head to toe.
Wow.
So my body was in such severe pain that I would pass out from it. So they put me to sleep to perform that 3 times a day. With my body deteriorating with its body mass, they actually had accidentally overdosed me. And I had flatlined, and my parents had walked back into the room at that stage. So
Wow.
I can't remember how scary it was for them. I remember my mum screaming, "Don't leave me," and then I remember sitting up in bed. So.
Wow. And what number was that experience when you flatlined? Was that out of the 5 times?
Around the 4th time. So, and then one would have been when I was older from one of my last asthma attacks I've had. I realized that I had to move. So some of the places I was living was creating too many allergies, which was making my asthma play up. And when I moved away from those allergens or those potential environments that cause those problems, it's much better. So my illness, my eczema and my asthma isn't because I've grown out of it as such. It's just because I'm brilliant at controlling the environment that causes them.
Right. Yeah. Which is all that knowledge you didn't have back then at the time of how to control your environment to stop it being triggered.
Yes, none. There was none of that information.
My goodness, but you and your parents have just been through such an incredible journey. And yeah, I just felt the emotion rising then when you said your mum walked in and said, screaming, your mum was there screaming, "Don't leave me."
I wouldn't be here if she hadn't have done that. I know I would have moved on.
You could have drifted off at that point. Oh, have you told her that?
Yes.
Yeah, she knows. Oh my goodness.
To be honest, that's probably one of my purposes in life, that I'm not here for me. I actually feel like I'm now here to serve others.
Yes.
It was more of a gift. I'm okay to pass, but I'm actually here to give back.
Yeah, and there was a reason you came back when you could have so easily slipped away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yes, and you weren't sure why this story is inspiring. Well, your story, I just find it incredible that what you've endured. And so on that topic of you feeling as though you now have a purpose, is, you came back and your mum called you back. She desperately didn't want to lose you, but then there's also this sense of purpose that you now feel that she called me back and there must be a reason I'm here, and you feel this incredible call to service now.
It's actually been a journey to find that too, that call. I felt kind of guilty for being given such an opportunity, and I had sort of wasted it because there was nothing that was really making me very passionate. And I've only really just started to discover that recently. So I've been doing a 100-day challenge, and it's about being seen. And as you would understand, the thought of being seen to me has been quite difficult. It was easier not to be seen. I wasn't teased. I wasn't beaten. I wasn't tormented. All that. I have been beaten up and locked in toilets for just having yucky skin. So the challenge was to try and overcome that, because where I want to be involves being seen, and what I want to serve and give involves being seen. So I've been doing that challenge very slowly. And
so just for those who don't know what that challenge is, can you describe what it is?
So it's a Facebook challenge, and I have to show for 100 days, I have to show myself being seen. So that's just daily life. It can be anything, but I have to show that my face and my body every day. But I thought I would take it one step further, and I actually thought that I would share with everyone pictures of the little me, the person that was tormented and teased, and allowing her to be seen just as much as me.
Oh, yeah. And I did see that one you posted of yourself fully bandaged and your beautiful face shining out, at the top and covered in bandages, and I thought that was beautiful.
Thank you.
That you put up for everyone to see.
Yes. That's for two reasons. One, because that's life, but two, people don't realise that's what was happening behind the doors. That's what was happening 3 times a day. You're standing there naked in a hospital room with people that don't know you. And don't understand that you're in pain. So it's a little awkward as a small child, from 10 to 16 really, to have that happen.
Awkward, I would say, is a very mild way of putting it. You're a strong girl, a strong woman.
Thank you.
And so you and I were chatting briefly before we started recording today about how this challenge of helping you 100 days of being seen, which means every day you put your face on Facebook, which is something that you would never have done before, even once a year. Well, maybe once in a blue moon kind of thing.
Yes, it was. I hadn't posted, but people had posted of me. But me personally had never posted in over a year on Facebook.
So that was a huge barrier for you to break through in terms of putting yourself out there and being seen. And as you were describing about how you never wanted to be seen as a child, you would do anything to hide away and not be tormented. And so can you describe that feeling, that process that you've gone through in the last sort of couple of months of putting yourself out there, and how healing that's been for you?
It's been very healing. It's been more so than I thought it would. It gets easier. So when you confront your fears and you actually start to take steps to do so, it gets easier. So the first up, I noticed that I was really scared, obviously, trying to share my story. It did take me 30 days before I actually showed the picture of why I was doing the challenge. And it took me that long to actually be confident enough to show that. Then it took another 25 days before I shared my next post, which was quite personal too. It was another growth, which I wasn't expecting. So I have trouble accepting praise. And I have trouble expecting praise because the way I see praise and the way that praise was given to me was that I had to be in pain. So I was always praised for always being in pain, but being able to persevere and able to keep going. So I associate the word and the feeling of praise that I have to be in pain.
Wow.
And trying to relearn, as your wonderful book is, sometimes we have to unlearn in order to grow. Yeah.
So you have to unlearn that conditioned thinking about praise equals your suffering.
Yes. And that's so when I get praise, I automatically actually tense. It makes me go, ugh. I don't like that. Or I actually put things off. I just did a course for ADHD support groups. I just ran an ADHD support group for 30 participants, and they all did testimonials. It took me 2.5 weeks to want to read those testimonials, even though I could see, and from all the praise I received, that it was well received, and they were very happy and they were very excited for the way forward with that. But because I was fearful of feeling pain, I took 2.5 weeks before I would even read.
Wow. And how did you react when you read the testimonials?
I was still tense because I actually wasn't aware at the time. It was about a week after that I actually started to try and work on why. Why was this so difficult? Why was it so hard to be told you're great and take so much time to hear that? And
to really receive it. Yeah.
To really receive it. And I'm still working on it because that's actually very raw. That's only happened to me in the last week.
Wow.
Yeah. So the 50 day, so Tara, I'm up to 58 days, and the challenge of being seen is getting easier because I haven't actually received any horrible negative comments that I was expecting. It's all been positive.
Were you actually expecting negative feedback from 100 days of being seen?
Yes, definitely. And especially sharing my pictures of where you can see my eczema and you can see the scabs, especially the recent one.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was expecting someone to say, "Oh, you're still contagious. You had herpes all over your body," but it's not. It's not the same sort of virus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been quite fearful that people would still see me as I saw myself back then.
So the fact that you've only received positive encouragement and support in putting yourself and your story out there, and people praising you, well, for the courage it takes to face that part of your journey, and not only you're not only facing it but embracing it and sharing it as a way of helping yourself heal and do the work that you're meant to do. So yeah, that seems to me like a massive transformation you've had to undergo in terms of going from having that story about your youth to now being okay with sharing, this is who I was and this is who I am, and this has made me the person I am today for doing the work I need to do.
It has. It's definitely opened me up to be able to share that. It's something that not many people that do know me actually have a clue of my past. I've never shared with them. And it's for multiple reasons. One.
Yeah.
2, sometimes people can't relate.
Yeah.
Or 3, I've had so much people think that I'm topping their stories, if that makes sense.
Right.
I feel like I can't share stuff because I have this one thing, whatever bad happened to me, right? So the worst that's ever happened to me and the worst that's ever happened to you, they're the same. We might have actually gone through different experiences, but we can still relate to each other because we've all felt that horrible feeling. So just because our circumstances are different, it doesn't mean that we can't be identifiable and accepted and understanding each other.
True, but I find that personally hard to relate my hardship with your hardship, because it.
But that's because we like to undervalue everything we've gone through. But it shouldn't, because we still go, yeah, but I'm okay because I didn't go through that, or I shouldn't whinge because I didn't go through that. But you did go through that. You just went through it a different way.
Yeah, still I do find it very inspirational. So you'll have to receive that. Just because I know you and how passionate you are now about contributing something really significant back in, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because you and I haven't actually touched base a lot on. I've seen your journey evolving, because when you and I did the Find Your Path and Purpose course in Korea, at the end of that journey, you knew that initially you thought you might want to be a professional organizer because those are your natural strengths and gifts. And because we looked through very in depth at your strengths and natural talents, and organisation came out as a massive talent of yours. But then there was all these other layers to your strengths and talents, which were around empathy and compassionate listening and guiding and supporting and encouraging, and all of those things that make a mentor or a coach or a counsellor or guide And maybe tell us about where your journey is taking you now that you've uncovered those strengths and you feel the need to give those back.
I want to thank you for everything you actually did for me during that course, because it's very inspirational to me. I was very limiting. So you actually opened me up to the fact that I actually have the potential to do everything that you said I could do. And I remember going, no, I can only be an organizer because that's my strength. And everything you kept trying to tell me, no, you could actually do this, Tara. You could be like Oprah. Right? You had so much belief in me that I've gone, no, I think I can only organize.
Yeah.
So I was so limiting in what I could be doing.
Yeah.
But without doing that course with you, I wouldn't have actually grown enough to slowly open up to the possibility that actually, no, I can be better. And I can use those talents to do more. Yes. So I had to, in order to be able to stand in front of 30 people, obviously I had to tackle my issues of being seen. Mm-hmm. I also had to tackle the issues of feeling like I'm not smart enough, because that was one of my other big things growing up. I also have specific learning disability, and I have auditory processing issues, and I also missed 60% of schooling. So growing up and trying to prove that I'm smart in the way that is dictated that you must prove, I couldn't do that. So overcoming that has been another big adventure for me. Mm-hmm. And so fear, praise, and being smart have been my 3 contributing factors right now that I'm working on to deliver my ADHD support groups and the program I had for that. And the whole point is that I felt so lonely. So when I was Owen was 1, nobody really believed me that something was wrong, and it took quite a struggle to actually get a doctor on board to understand or even support me in that. And by the time we finally got around to having an MRI done, he was diagnosed with brain damage to the cerebellum, and that he was probably genetically disposed to being ADHD later. I didn't think much of that, to be honest, because he was 1, and my view of ADHD was that's just naughty child syndrome. They just need more love or a big smack. So I've come a long way in understanding that it's a neurological disorder, that it's 70% genetic, 30% brain trauma. Wow. That causes the symptoms of ADHD.
So conditioning and a parental environment is actually not a part of the mix at all.
No, absolutely none. Wow. Not one part of ADHD comes down to parenting.
Interesting.
The only part that can help is the child's symptoms. So they will have, it's like diabetes. So you have diabetes. How do you get helped with your diabetes? By treating your diabetes.
Yeah.
Whether you've got a great mum that loves you or not, you're still going to have diabetes.
Right. Yes.
ADHD, you still have ADHD. Your brain it's developed that way. You genetically have genes that create that development. And sorry, are you there?
Yes, you're back. You dropped out for a minute.
And that learning and trying to change the world's view on ADHD to make sure that they are supported and they're not neglected like I was, has become my biggest passion.
So you were neglected not only as a child, but then as a parent when you had Owen, your first son, and you knew that you could see there was something different about him, and you got no support for, firstly, no acknowledgement or validation that what you were observing was accurate, and secondly, no support for what you were observing.
No, but then no person has had support with the ADHD diagnosis. Right. This is something that I'm learning across board. You get given it, you get given a form and you tick little boxes, and then a doctor will go, it's ADHD, take these pills. But you're not educated on what that is. You don't know your next step forwards, and you're not given any tools or strategies of how to cope with that. It's kind of like it's up to you. But I can't imagine someone with ADHD or cancer going, not that I'm wanting to compare them to that, but just here's your pill, off you go.
Yeah, good luck.
And, so autism was like that, but now we have more understanding and compassion.
And support structures.
And that's what we're trying to change with ADHD.
Right. So this is quite a novel thing you're doing. You're setting up ADHD support groups for other parents in a similar situation.
Yes. Yes.
And providing them the knowledge, the support, the insight, all of that.
Yeah, and the next strategies and the next steps forward for getting treatments and where to receive them, because it's not well known.
Oh, so yeah, that makes my heart sing, because that's your gift. You're giving back, and this might not be what you end up doing for the rest of your life, but you're living your destiny now, because you're giving back in the way that you wanted to, which is using all that empathy, all the natural qualities and strengths that you have.
Yeah, it is. It feels fantastic. I feel like I have got a purpose. I feel like I've got a calling, and I feel like I can make a difference.
Oh.
Even though I can be up till midnight or 2 a.m. writing, information down to deliver it, it's fascinating. I feel like it energizes me more than it drains me.
Endless inspiration, right? And endless, energy to spend on it. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful that you found it. You found your path and your purpose.
Yes, you're right. It might not be forever, but it's certainly where it's going right now, and I love it.
And I think the thread will always remain the same, in that I can't remember exactly what it was, but we talked about how there's usually in the course that I led you through, there's the emotional thread running through our own journey that we then, so what we suffered with the most is what we then most want to give back. And I think in your case it was to do with the complete lack of empathy and support for the situation you were in as a child. And that was the deep emotional wound that you suffered. You felt alone and isolated and abandoned, I think was another word that came up, just by the system, not by your parents, but by the
system.
Yeah.
And by society itself.
Exactly, yeah.
But not because they were ill-educated, they just didn't understand. Like they were working on just their raw fear than what they were by being more compassionate.
And so that emotional feeling, that wound that you suffered, is now what you're giving back. That's what you most needed then, was the empathy and the compassion and the care and the support, and that's now what you're giving back to others through your work in ADHD.
I wouldn't be here without it. If I didn't go through that, it wouldn't make me who I am, and I wouldn't be able to give where I'd like to give. I don't regret anything I've gone through in my life. It's definitely given me all my tools that I need to go forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that trumps any kind of need to be smart or whatever it is that society dictates.
It does.
You've done your training. You've gone to emotional university through the journey you've been through. You have, experienced, lived, and you've had all the training that you need to do exactly what you're doing now. And I think it's a beautiful thing when you can recognize that, because we can get so hung up in, oh, you don't have a PhD in psychology, or,
That still struggles. I had to struggle with that. But a psychologist that is supporting me said to me, I'm bound by legal obligations, but you're not as a mum.
Wow.
And I can probably reach more people than they can.
And in a more genuine and authentic way, possibly.
Yes. And that actually helped me to say, you know what, let's just try this.
Yeah.
So, and as I said, growing up being one of my things that I don't feel smart, it's not that I was never smart, I just was never able to accomplish what people expected of my intelligence.
And plus you had such a big chunk of your schooling taken out by being ill all the time, so you lost a big chunk of what would be a normal progression.
Yeah.
And then and then so I can completely imagine that leaves you feeling behind or not up to.
I was always drowning as such. So I spent the whole time trying to catch up on my learning, that I wasn't learning one thing, I was learning 2 or 3 things. And then there was all these invisible rules that I was unaware of because I hadn't learnt those. So it was very difficult.
Constantly trying to catch up. Especially what?
In mathematics. So that would have been my hardest one.
Yeah.
And spelling. And spelling. So, but you can still do. It shouldn't prevent you. You can still actually do. We just use tools to make that easier.
Exactly. And I think the work that you're doing is leveraging all the strengths and qualities that you have And once you live in that zone, in your zone of genius, the rest doesn't matter.
No.
Contributing what you're able to. So for those who have a child with ADHD or know someone, where can they find more information specifically with the work you're doing?
That's a good question. I have only got a small group down in Launceston at the moment, but I am online. My website will be up and running very soon.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, I'll give it to you to post it. It should be up in March.
And do you have a name yet for the business?
ADHD Support Groups. So if you Google that, you should be able to find me on Facebook page.
Yeah.
So, our logo is that we provide support, tools and practical strategies for those that love someone with ADHD.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. So everybody watch this space for your website coming out, because at the moment you do local support, but you're hoping to make that available publicly.
Publicly, yes. Not just Australia, but everywhere. Like it's definitely misunderstood, and there is no support out there when you first get a diagnosis, or even while you're during the process, before, during, and after. There's not much support out there.
And how is Owen doing these days?
Oh, he's thriving. Now that I understand the condition and I understand the tools that I need to implement and the scaffolding he needs, it's kind of like being in a wheelchair and being made to use the stairs all the time. Like, that's how they go through life when they're not understood and it's not helped and they're not given the tools and the aids that they require. That's what they do, and we wonder why they get cranky, and we wonder why that they have struggles, and it's because we don't understand it yet,
and they can't communicate it.
They communicate it, so they don't understand it. So they just see themselves as normal. How can they communicate that something's different when they don't see it as different?
Yeah. Oh, well done on the beautiful work you're doing, and I know you're going to touch so many lives, and I think you already have through the support groups, and hopefully with time you'll be able to receive all those testimonials with no problem, and and really take in the positive feedback you're getting, and may it continue to inspire you to keep doing what you're doing and serving the way you're serving.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, time flies when you're having a beautiful discussion. So I just want to thank you so much thank you for being so willing to share your story and your journey, and for being so open and vulnerable about that, because I think that's what helps us heal collectively, is through sharing stories with each other and helping us know we're not alone and we're not weird, for the different, we can, like you said, we can get stuck in these lies about ourselves, and we're not worthy, or we're not smart, or we're not this and that, and we all have whatever it is that we feel in which, a way in which we're not enough. And by sharing that, I think it helps us all see that.
It definitely helps. That's why I'm honored to be a part of this, because I think it's a fantastic and quite a brilliant idea.
Oh, thank you.
So I really hope it takes off. And you have more people that can inspire others. So.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Everyone has a beautiful story to tell, I think.
Always.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for sharing, and we'll be in touch very soon.
Okay. Thanks, Kate.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.